Good evening. Topic this evening is Esther's decision, which obviously changed her life forever and the destiny of the Jewish people. But I'd like to explore the major impact of what she did for Klal Yisrael, not just for the future, but also for the past. Probably the most famous dialogue we have between Mordechai and Esther is when they find out about this decree. The word is sent throughout the land, and Mordechai sends the message to Esther, Laharos es Esther, to show her what's going on, Ulitzavos eleh lovo el melech, and to command her, to give her a tzivui, clear instructions to go before the king, lihischane lo levakesh milufonav halama, to be able to beg and to plead for your nation, to save Klal Yisrael. Esther sends back her feelings, and she asks Mordechai, why do I have to go now? We know I haven't been called in for 30 days, and likely he'll be calling me any moment. For me to go without the invitation is being married b'malchus. It's rebelling against the law of the land. I'm risking my life. We know the decree was set for a year later, and therefore, obviously it was a time of turmoil, the entire Jewish people facing genocide, but if I wait a day or two or a week more until he calls me, then I could be more effective perhaps, and I won't have to risk my life. Mordechai sends the message back to Esther. Very strong words, and there are so many different levels of interpretation, but just to read the words and appreciate them together. Al tedami v'nafshech, do not imagine to yourself, lihimolet beis hamelech mikol haYehudim, that you have any chance of being safe within the palace of the king and not having the same fate as the rest of the Jewish people. Ki'im hacharesh tachrishi beis hazos, if you remain silent at this time, revach v'atzola yamod liYehudim b'makom acher, don't worry, we'll have our salvation, we'll have a miracle from a different source, from a different person, in another way. However, va'atu beis avich tovedu, but you and your father's home will be lost. Umi yodeya im le'ez kazos higat lemalchus, and who knows, perhaps you were placed into the situation of being the queen precisely for this moment in time. Mordechai seems to be telling Esther, and it's not clear if he's directly addressing her question. Her question was, yes, I'm ready, willing, able to go before Achashverosh and beg and plead for my people. I'm just asking, why do I have to do it now? Mordechai is responding, don't think that you have any chance of being safe within the confines of the palace. And if you remain silent, that will have no impact on the destiny of the Jewish people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has many ways of saving Klal Yisrael, but you and your father's home will be lost forever, and perhaps you were put in this position for exactly this reason, to be here to save the Jewish people. It's not clear if he's addressing her concern, but he's definitely telling her, this is what you must do, and you must do it now. What does it mean, va'atu beis avich tovedu? You and your father's home are going to be lost. Esther was raised without a father. Megillah says she had no father and mother, and she was adopted by Mordechai. What's the idea behind you and your father's house are going to be lost? Who's your father's house? And then the last point of his message, the simple understanding is, he's conjecturing. He's saying perhaps the reason why Hashem orchestrated your position in royalty is to save the Jewish people because now you have influence. Mordechai was a prophet. Esther was a prophet as well. She was one of the 7 Nevios. Mordechai was one of the 48 prophets of Klal Yisrael. It doesn't sound like such a far-out suggestion that maybe you were placed in the palace to save the Jewish people. It's very, very reasonable to assume that's the case. So what is Mordechai talking about? If you don't make this move, if you remain silent, you and your father's household will be lost. And this conjecture, it sounds like he's sharing something deep and profound, something that you or I probably would not have thought of because we're not prophets. What was so deep about that idea? That maybe you were placed here for this reason. It sounds very likely she was. On a surface level, and just to appreciate, there's so often we have different challenges in life, and in the moment it's very hard to see my reaction or my decision might have a long-term ramification on this relationship, on the community. We're very much in our own little narrow world. But says the Medrash Rabbah, explaining the main message, the charge of Mordechai was, if you remain silent now, you won't have what to respond to Hashem when you leave this world. Your silence here will equal your silence there. What are you going to say? Sha'at yechola lasos tova b'yamayech v'lo asis. You had the ability to do good in your lifetime, and you didn't step up to the plate. How are you going to respond to that? Uma'at savura shekadosh baruch hu maniach es Yisrael. Do you think Klal Yisrael is going to, that Hashem is going to abandon the Jewish people? If you don't step up to the plate, somebody else will. But you're risking your eternity. You're risking your eternity by remaining silent. Rav Moshe Feinstein lived in an apartment building, and just a few doors away from Rav Moshe was Rav Tuvia Goldstein. Tuvia Goldstein was also one of the great Gedolim in America in the beginning part of the 20th century, the mid part of the 20th century. I had the privilege of learning with his son-in-law, Rav Usher David. He should be healthy and well. So I heard throughout the years many stories about Rav Tuvia Goldstein and his relationship with Rav Moshe Feinstein. Because not only were they neighbors, but they were close friends, and they spoke in learning, and when big questions came, oftentimes they would debate and analyze the correct halachic approach. And it wouldn't be uncommon that Rav Tuvia Goldstein might walk down late at night and knock on Rav Moshe's door to engage in a conversation of a pressing topic. And one night, as he was going to the apartment of Rav Moshe Feinstein, he sees a person walking out, and this person is filled with gratitude. Thank you so much, I mamish appreciate it, to Rav Moshe. Again, I have so much hakaras hatov, and this person walks out, and Rav Tuvia Goldstein walks in. Rav Tuvia Goldstein recognized this person, and he knew this guy was someone who brought real pain and anguish to Rav Moshe Feinstein for many years, based on things that he said about Rabbi Feinstein, based on rumors and lashon hora that he spread. And now, obviously, he was coming and asking for a favor. So putting everything together quickly in his mind, Rav Tuvia Goldstein said to Rav Moshe Feinstein, I'm going to guess he was asking you to do something for him, asking you for a favor. And Rav Moshe smiled. He said, yes. I'm going to guess that you agreed to do whatever he was asking you to do. And Rav Moshe smiled. He said, I did. Rav Tuvia Goldstein asked Rav Moshe, how can you not be makpid on your kavod? How can you just do something for someone and treat him as if he's your friend when you know what he says about you? You know what kind of anguish he's put you through. Why would you be there for him to do whatever the favor is? And Rav Moshe's response was, we know the famous Gemara in Avodah Zarah, where it's possible to be kona olamo b'sha achas. One could acquire his entire eternity in one moment. With one powerful decision, seeing through the fog and having the clarity and the courage to make the right move, you could acquire your eternity in one moment. So said Rav Moshe to Rav Tuvia Goldstein, Efshir, it could be Zvayin Shah. Maybe this is my moment. It was hard for me to work past those feelings, but Efshir Mein Shah, this could be my moment that's going to transform me. You never know. So on a basic level, the Medrash Rabbah is telling us that was the charge of Mordechai to Esther. Don't lose sight within the fear and the anxiety. Understand this could be your moment that you were born for. Taking it one step deeper though. Not that long ago, Mr. Fried, joining us from Eretz Yisrael, introduced me to the Targum Sheni. Targum Sheni is a wonderful midrashic source. Historically speaking, there are different interpretations as to how many hundreds of years back it goes, but it's quite authentic. And it's both a translation but also an expansion of Megillas Esther in Aramaic to make the Hebrew easier to understand. For those of you who naturally feel more comfortable with Aramaic. However, there are a few lines here that I want to focus on. The way that the Targum Sheni describes the charge of Mordechai to Esther is that really Mordechai was alluding to something that took place hundreds of years in the past. Mordechai was alluding to the episode of Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, and that moment in time where he made the wrong decision, he crumbled under pressure. He didn't follow through listening to the instructions of Shmuel HaNavi, and he lost the kingdom. Now we know that Esther was a descendant of Shaul, and what Mordechai was telling Esther was, how is it that we're suffering from Haman right now? How is it possible we have someone like this on the planet? He was the Hitler of Mach Shemo of the time. His intent was genocide. So we know Chazal tell us that because Shaul did not follow through with the total destruction of Amalek, he did not comply with the instructions of Shmuel, Agag, the king of Amalek, was allowed to live for one more day. That one more day, he was able to live with a young lady, and she conceived, and her offspring eventually bore Haman HaRasha. So says Mordechai to Esther, the predicament that we're in right now is really your fault. You didn't do anything wrong, but this is the mishpacha. This goes back to your great-great-great-grandfather, Shaul HaMelech. And therefore, it's your place to rectify what he did wrong. That's what the Targum Sheni says. Echoing this idea is the Megillas Starim. The Megillas Starim is a sefer written by the Nesivos, hundreds of years after the Targum Sheni. Very top of page 2, the Nesivos shares a similar idea. He explains, what was Mordechai telling Esther? Va'atu beis avich tovedu. You and your father's home will be lost if you don't stand up to this challenge. Hatam heyos ki Haman nitzmach al yedei chet Shaul. Haman sprouted forth from the mistake that Shaul, your great-grandfather, made regarding Agag. Asher anichu chai, that he left him alive, and he had misplaced compassion. V'hutzrich shetia hatzola al yedei Esther shehi mizera Shaul. And therefore, the salvation of Klal Yisrael now needs to be through Esther, needs to be through you, because you're the direct descendant of Shaul HaMelech. You're the one needed to be misakein to rectify his chait. This is actually alluded to in the bracha we say after reading the Megillah. We have the bracha of Harabis Rivenu and Asher Heini. One verse is V'lo zocher rachamei shol. The song is speaking to Haman that when you were trying to destroy the Jewish people, you didn't remember the compassion that Shaul had. Ki bechem loso al Agag nolad oyev. Through his misplaced compassion on your great-great-grandfather, you were able to be alive. And by you now chasing after Klal Yisrael, clearly you don't have any recognition or appreciation of what he did. But what he did was a mistake, and Esther's job now was to somehow rectify that mistake. What I want to explore briefly is how does she have the ability to be misakein, to somehow bring a kapara, to bring forgiveness to Shaul. Shaul messed up. He was always a tzaddik, but he lost the kingdom. How is her decision here and now, going to Achashverosh, going to rectify what her great-great-grandfather did in any way, shape, or form? So I want to just read a few lines of that story together. This goes back to Sefer Shmuel. That Shmuel, after he was given the instructions, that Shaul rather was given the instructions from Shmuel, and they waged war against the Amalek. However, v'yachmo Shaul v'am al Agag, that Shaul and the people had compassion on Agag, the king of Amalek. Hashem communicates with Shmuel and says, you should know, based on what Shaul just did, I am now regretting my decision of appointing him king. He can no longer be Melech Yisrael. When Shmuel hears this, he's in such pain, such anguish, knowing that Shaul made this mistake that would cost him the Malchus. V'yovo Shmuel el Shaul. Shmuel comes to Shaul. We're going to be reading this on Shabbos. V'yomer lo Shaul baruch atah Hashem hakimosi es devar Hashem. Shaul assumes that he did everything he was supposed to. They destroyed the vast majority of the nation of Amalek. So he says, thank God I was able to fulfill the command of Hashem. And Shmuel says famously, Umeh kol hatzon hazeh ba'oznai. Why do I hear the sound of the sheep in my ears? You were supposed to destroy everything of Amalek. So Shaul tries to explain. He says that we brought them from the nation, Asher chomol ha'am, that we had compassion on segments of Amalek. But we brought them to bring as offerings to Hashem, to bring as karbanos. And Shmuel says, the bottom line is you didn't listen to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you to do. I gave you clear instructions as a prophet of God telling you how to wage war, and you didn't listen. V'yomer Shmuel halo im koton ata beinecha. Are you small in your eyes? Meaning to say, you don't have the proper perspective of who you are and what you're able to do. Rosh Shiftei Yisrael ata. You're the head of the Jewish people. You're the king. The fact that there was some internal pressure not to destroy the entire nation of Amalek, that shouldn't allow you to do that which you know is not true. You were appointed as Melech. V'yim shechecha Hashem lemelech al Yisrael. You were appointed as king. But obviously you didn't recognize, you didn't appreciate the power that you had, and that's why this mistake happened. You allowed the people and you allowed yourself to have compassion when it was not the call of the hour. What was Esther's whole role in this story? From the very beginning, Mordechai tells her the first thing is, don't reveal your identity. Don't let anyone know where you come from. Why not? So the Gemara has different interpretations. And the Gra, right, the Vilna Gaon explains that he was very concerned about Esther revealing her identity Because initially, when they made this proclamation that all women should come and try out for the queen, so they hid Esther. She was in hiding for a while. And then eventually she was found and she was forced into being one of the young women, one of the candidates. Mordechai was concerned, though, that if they find out her background and they remember the story that she didn't come when she was supposed to, they might kill her, either because she's Jewish or because she didn't come willingly. It's a disgrace to the kingdom. How could you not be running at the opportunity? So Mordechai said, don't reveal your identity. Esther, now she sees that she's taken into captivity, but they're treating her like royalty. Nobody seems to know or remember anything that took place beforehand. Says the Vilna Gaon, "V'achshav mara lonu hakosav godel tzidkasa." The verse is actually sharing with us the righteousness of Esther. What was her righteousness? Shemordechai lo tziva leha ela machmas yira shelo yargu osa. The only reason why Mordechai said, don't tell them that you're Jewish, don't let them know where you come from, is because he was concerned they might kill her. However, as soon as she entered into that palace and she saw with her own eyes that they were giving her kavod and reverence, she understood immediately that concern is not applicable. Afal pichein, listen to these words, even though she understood that the tzivui of Mordechai, the Das Torah, the instructions Mordechai gave her, were not really applicable, she still kept her identity to herself. Why? Ki Mordechai tziva alaha asher lo sagid. Because Mordechai commanded her not to tell. And she wanted to keep that tzivui, she wanted to hold on to that command. Afal pi shehaisa yodah she'ein tam noheg, even though she knew that the reason behind what he said was not actually applicable. And this shows us her righteousness. Why is that righteous? That's just silly. He told you something that's probably somewhat difficult to maintain, not an easy thing to hide your identity. It's probably part of the conversation that goes on within the palace. Where did you grow up? What's your culture? What's your background? To keep that a secret when you really know there's no need to keep that a secret, because Mordechai was mitzvah, Mordechai said you should do this, but I know why he said I should do it, and I also know that doesn't apply because Baruch Hashem, things are going well. Why does that show her righteousness? So I think any of us who've ever had a real relationship with somebody of stature, a mentor, someone whose very essence was inspiring, someone who didn't have to tell you what to do and what not to do, but just being able to interact with them and have conversations and ask questions and watch them experience life, that itself was uplifting. There's almost this instinctual desire to listen and be connected. Even if theoretically this particular hadracha, the guidance in this case, is not really relevant, but there's this psychological connection. If I could feel connected to Mordechai and listen to what the tzaddik told me, to listen to what the Gadol Hador said, even though I don't really have to, but that's going to strengthen my relationship with him and my relationship with that Das Torah. That's why her listening was actually a demonstration of her righteousness. This could very well be the point where Shaul failed and Esther was able to succeed. Shaul did not appreciate that he was Melech Yisrael. He underestimated himself, and he didn't have that same sense of conviction and connection with Shmuel. Shmuel was the Gadol Hador. Shmuel told him what needed to happen. It was difficult to bring it out, though. It was difficult to actually destroy the entire nation of Agag. Why was it so hard? Because we're Jewish. We're Rachmanim. By shonim v'gomlei chasadim, we have this natural compassion. The whole idea of warfare is something that's foreign. We do it because we have to. So although it was so difficult for him to overcome, what he needed to do was feel a sense of being empowered. I'm Melech Yisrael. I was given a clear direction from Shmuel, who was the Gadol Hador. This is what I need to do. But he didn't do that. Esther now comes on the scene hundreds of years later. And she's in the exact same position. She's the Malka. She has authority. She has influence. Mordechai is telling her, don't underestimate what you could do right now, Esther. Don't remain silent. You'll regret that for the rest of your life. And if you do remain silent, then Atu Beis Avich, you and your father's home will be lost forever. Not her biological father, who was never in the picture. He was never in her life. But meaning you and Beis Shol, the kingdom, the dynasty of Saul, is going to be lost because you're losing this opportunity to be Mesakein, to rectify what he did wrong. And that's what he ends off his message by saying. He says, perhaps, mi yodeya im le'ez kazos higat lemalchus. Who knows? Maybe it was just for this particular time Hashem orchestrated you coming into this position. He wasn't just saying, oh, maybe that we have a Jewish person as the queen, you can now be helpful for saving us, and that's probably hashgacha pratis. He was saying something much deeper. Perhaps Hashem orchestrated your presence in this role at this time in history, not just to save Klal Yisrael for now and the future, but to be able to save Klal Yisrael in the past, to be able to stand up for Shaul HaMelech and to be mesakein his chait, to be able to rectify the mistake that he had of not being able to be there and take power and take ownership and feel that allegiance to Shmuel and follow through even a difficult situation. You could do that right now. That's your role. The message, I think, for all of us is Sha'at Yechola Lasos Tova B'yamayech V'lo Asis. We never want to be faced with the question, after we leave this world, is it true you were able to do something? You were able to encourage somebody else? You were able to learn more? You were able to give more tzedakah? You were able to be a better husband or a more caring mother? If I was able to do something and I didn't give it my all, I didn't realize, like Ramosha Feinstein, that Efsher, this is mein shah. It could be this is my moment. You never want to leave this world feeling that maybe I missed my moment. We should capitalize, appreciate the nisyonos, appreciate the challenges that we have throughout life, and you never know which moment can change you forever. Shkoyach.